You guys remember Zechariah has been having some really interesting visions this night, and we got looks like what's the last vision coming up during this one particular night, and it's kind of read. I haven't tried to break it down myself, but it seems like some people said there's 10 visions, some say there 8. I guess it depends on how you break them down. Um, but anyway, he had a very busy night, and I'm thinking about maybe if I can get the opportunity to, because there's going to be a big kind of a change of gears here after the chapter 6, where it's going to be more the Lord speaking and giving revelation, more than just these visions that he's had here. Maybe do kind of an overview of the first 6 chapters. I don't know if it's something we would do at the study or just something I would do myself and then put it out there for you guys to look at. So at this point, we'll be planning to do chapter 7 next week. I'm assuming we can finish chapter 6 today. So let's share the screen here. Don't be selfish. Okay. Try to adjust my screen a little bit here. All right. I guess you're seeing chapter 6 there, right?
Yes.
Sometimes I make assumptions. I need to make sure they're right. So if you remember last week, Zechariah had the visions of the final, we finished up last week, was the woman in the basket and the 2 women with wings flying the basket off to Babylon. And here it looks like Zechariah is still awake because it says, then I turned. So he's looking somewhere else now and he sees something else taking place. And I think we'll try to break this down. Not a whole, yeah. Joe, you want to read the first 4 verses here? I don't think
sure.
I don't think it's too complicated, but who knows once we get started.
Okay. Then I turned and raised my eyes and looked, and behold, 4 chariots were coming from between 2 mountains. And the mountains were mountains of bronze. With the first chariot were red horses, with the second chariot black horses, with the third chariot white horses, and with the fourth chariot dappled horses, strong steeds. Then I answered and said to the angel who talked with me, what are these, my Lord? So as far as the mountains, I mean, he's not naming them or anything like the Bible talks about mountains, twin mountains and stuff like that. But being that they're mountains of bronze, some sort of judgment coming out of them, I'm thinking. And as far as the colors of the horses, I'm not making too much out of that. And they're strong steeds. I answered to the angel, yes. And then he asks, what's going on? What is this? So that's my take on those first 4 verses.
Yeah. George, did you get anything particular out of those that you thought?
Well, I'm wondering, black and white, night and day, the opposites, whether or not that is meaningful. Dappled is like multicolored. It's different changed patterns. And then the red horses, I would assume, are power.
Yeah, I looked through, I was going, okay, what do all these colors mean? And it's interesting, if we go back, remember in chapter 1, first time we saw any horses. Now here we have chariots with horses. In chapter 1, you remember in 8, it says, I saw by night, and behold, a man riding a red horse, and it stood among the myrtle trees in the hollow, and behind him were horses, red, sorrel, and white. So not exactly the same colors, but some of the same colors. And there he asked the angel, he said, my Lord, what are these? And the angel said, I will show you what they are. And the man who stood among the myrtle trees answered and said, these are the ones whom the Lord has sent to walk to and fro throughout the earth. So we aren't given any indication about what the colors mean here either. Whether the colors are significant or not, maybe. I don't think we have a lot of insight. I'm kind of with Joe. I'm not sure that how much the colors mean. Some of the people I tried to reference, it's like some of them went with some of the meaning with the colors. Some of them like they weren't sure the colors were all that important, but they weren't being adamant about that. In other words, they weren't totally convinced the colors were important, but they didn't feel like they had enough insight either to discuss what the colors might mean. We do know that in some places, like I'll show you here in a minute. Anyway, so these are messengers, kind of like scouts here, because these go out. And so they answered the angel of the Lord who stood among the myrtle trees and said, "We have walked to and fro throughout the earth, and behold, all the earth is resting quietly." So these on the horses went to and fro throughout all the earth, and it looked like they were just observers, right? We don't see necessarily they did any kind of action other than going out and getting a report. And then later we see here, the Lord says, "I am zealous for Jerusalem and for Zion with a great zeal, and I'm exceedingly angry with the nations at ease, for I was a little angry and they helped, but with evil intent." So we see that as a result of this report about the earth being quiet. He's talking about humanity and the nations, and the Lord is angry with the nations at ease. So he got a report back and wasn't too happy in a sense that in other words, he sees the nations at ease, but I think we can see here in chapter 6, it's going to be a little different thing here of chariots. When the chariots come into play, maybe I'll just have George read the next, and we'll talk about what the chariots probably mean there.
Just 5, or you want me to go through 8?
I'll have just a second here. I want to look at Revelation real quick first. All right, then I'll have you read 5 through 8. Now, some people try to, and maybe rightly so, and I think since Joe rightly identified that the bronze mountains identifies judgment, when we see bronze in the scriptures, it's talking about judgment. So this is in Revelation, the 6th chapter. When we see the 4 horses, the apocalypse, as they're famously called, we see a white horse, we see a red horse, we see a black horse, and a pale horse. And some of these, depending on how to translate, the pale horse can be like a dappled horse. The color makes it look kind of pale. They've got light and dark spots, kind of like gray and different shades of gray on the horses. And in Revelation, those different colors definitely represent something happening, because we see that as they go out, what the colors are doing. It's like the white horse, this is not Jesus. And this is a conquering thing, the white one here. And even when Jesus comes later on in Revelation on a white horse, we see him coming to conquer also. But this is not him here. Then when the red one goes out, it's bringing war. And I think Joe mentioned that from or one of you guys did, about the red possibly meaning blood or war. That's true. The black horse comes, and we can see here that this is famine, because it's talking about the wheat, how much it's going to cost, and the barley, how much it's going to cost. So there's a shortage of food on the earth. And when the 4th horse comes out, the pale horse, it says death and Hades followed, and it said power was given to them over a fourth to them. You notice that's them, talk about all of them. 4th of the earth to kill with the sword, with hunger, with death, and by the beasts of the earth. So in Revelation, we see 4 horses. We don't see anything about chariots, but we do see that these 4 horses that come out are dealing with judgment on the earth. So, all right. So definitely could be a parallel that there's definitely some future stuff coming dealing with horses. It's like from John saw in Revelation. There may be in 5 through 8, as we look, we may see some things very futuristic. We may see some things that were closer at hand to Zechariah's day. Okay, George.
And the angel answered and said to me, these are 4 spirits of heaven who go out from their station before the Lord of all the earth. The one with the black horses is going to the north country. The white are going after them, and the dappled are going toward the south country. Then the strong steeds went out, eager to go, that they might walk to and fro throughout the earth. And he said, go walk to and fro throughout the earth. So they walked to and fro throughout the earth. And he called to me and spoke to me, saying, see, those who go toward the north country have given rest to my spirit in the north country. That number, line 8 kind of muddles the whole situation. I don't know if you guys feel that way. But, I see the black horses, that they're all spirits from heaven that are riding the horses. So I would assume they're angels.
Okay.
The black horses are going to the north country. The white are going after them. And the dappled are going toward the south. So I believe that the black horses, which may reflect more evil, may reflect the evil of the earth, and are there to either confront it or to support it. I'm not sure. But then the white horses are going after them in some type of a correction, more towards what God wants them to do instead of what man wants to do. And the dappled, I don't know what's going on in the South Country. They just seem to, since you've got multicolors, it's a little more confusing as opposed to the black and white. And the steeds are eager to go, so obviously they're there to confront whatever's happening on earth, whether in a supportive manner or to confront and challenge the evil that's happening on the earth. Where you get into 8, and that those who go towards the north country have given rest to my spirit in the north country. So those are the black and white horses, which makes me think that there's more confusion or uncertainty in the south country. Whether or not that's accurate or not, I don't know.
Okay. Sounds like, the interesting thing is, it sounds like that as you've been over this in your own study and even today, you're definitely looking for insight, as we all are. Mm-hmm. I tell you, I had a hard time finding what I would call good teaching on this chapter, except for the latter part. The latter part seemed to go, seems like the few people I was able to come across was even teaching on Zechariah in any detail. Came across a couple that are taught on the whole book in one night. Might be an interesting thing. I haven't even watched those, but it might be interesting to watch to get a total overview of Zechariah. I probably should do that just to see what they have as a take for the whole book. But I'm going to look real quick back here at Revelation. Where's the black horse? Okay. The black horse, if it was similar to, and if the horse's color meant similar things in Revelation as they do there, then we see that there's famine going on in the black horse, at least a shortage of goods. And the white horse is conquering. So now whether that applies back in Zechariah, I don't know. I think the things that I'm convinced of for sure is that when we see 4 spirits of heaven, we've seen 4 also several times already in Zechariah, and it's like there's a completement or fullness in a sense, because we've seen the four winds of heaven before, or the four winds of the earth. So it's like the whole thing. So there's four spirits of heaven who they go out from their station. They're normally before the Lord, it says. So the Lord has sent them out. And again, the black horses and the white horses, how significant the colors are, that the black one means something and the white one means something, or are we given the color differential so that when the angel tells Zechariah what's going on, he knows what he was referencing to. He saw the black horses go that way, he saw the white horses go that way, he saw the dappled horses go south. He didn't see the red horses go anywhere in particular. They're not given a direction, right? But then he tells Zechariah, those who go toward the north country, and he'd go, oh, okay, the north and the black and the white ones that went north. But we also see not only that these steeds with the chariots, and the chariots would indicate, it's kind of like war or punishment, correction, all of those, that the Lord is involved here of sending these chariots out to deal with judgment wherever the judgment needed to be dealt. And we see that historically throughout anyway, but we also see that obviously in the book of Revelation that's coming out with the horses. And we see it here. Now, how much of this is totally futuristic, I don't know. But when we see that those who go toward the north country have given rest to my spirit in the north country. And I don't know if I even just mentioned this, but they go out through the whole earth. See that? They're not limited. Even though they went north and some went south, altogether they cover the whole earth. So the whole earth is looked at here, because it says they go to and fro throughout the earth. So these chariots are going wherever, and the Lord is dealing with wherever places need to be dealt with. We saw back in Zechariah 1, he said, I'm exceedingly angry with the nations at ease. And we saw that here, the earth is resting quietly in chapter 1. And along with that, there's a question about, Lord, when are you going to deal with those who took us into captivity? And it's possible that this is what Zechariah is seeing here, and what he's going to pass on to the people, is that God is dealing not only with the north country, which would be Babylon, and if it's looking totally futuristic, you would see Magog in here. Not a lot. We see a lot of that coming up at the very end of the during the tribulation, before Jesus comes back and has the millennial reign. We see Gog, Magog, and those other countries that are affiliated. Some of those that are affiliated with Magog are in the South country, which is interesting. So north and south of Israel are countries or territories, nations that God will be dealing with very severely in the end times. He did deal with Babylon pretty severely, excuse me, in Zechariah's days. You remember Medo-Persia came in and they destroyed Babylon, took over all the territory that Babylon had captured, and they became part of the Persian Empire. So when it talks about, we can kind of compare this back in Zechariah 1, we see the earth, the spirit of the earth, so to speak, or the people of the earth are resting quietly, the nations. And here, in chapter 1, we saw God's spirit wasn't really at rest because he was angry with those nations. But now his spirit has rest in the north country. How much of that is exactly what was taking place then, because God had dealt with Babylon. There at this time, there would probably still been, the outfeeding from there of completing the work of dealing with Babylon and the Babylonian Empire. It's pretty much finished by then. Even though we see all this happening in one night, we see that on one hand, the first, I guess you call them scouts or whatever you call them, they go out, they're coming back and said all the nations are at ease. And then Zechariah has this vision where these chariots go out and deal with those nations that are at ease. I think we have one of those things again, like the double reference prophecies we've talked about before, that God is saying, I am dealing with those and I will deal with those. And when we look at toward the end time stuff, we see that God is definitely going to be judging the whole earth, especially when we look at Revelation chapter 6. A lot of that judgment going out. And we see the horses involved in all three of those visions. So John has visions of horses. Zechariah here has at least two visions of horses. So the North Country at this time, if it's talking about Zechariah's immediate time, would definitely be considered Babylon. Even though if you look on the map, Babylon is kind of to the east, but nobody traveled east to get to Babylon because you couldn't survive the desert journey. So they had to go north to get to Babylon, had to go up and around to get to Babylon. So Babylon was always considered in the scriptures north of Jerusalem, north of Israel, because of the route you had to go to get there. And like I say, we may be seeing really toward the end times also, because we'll see in the next section, it's going to be dealing with the end times also. So Zechariah has a lot of prophecies and things that deal with their immediate time period or shortly in the future for them, and then toward the end of all, before things are wrapped up. I don't know if I helped with any of that or not, but
I have a thought.
oh, good. I like thoughts.
Yeah, it happens now and then. The black horses. It's possible that the black horses are reflecting some kind of evil event, whether it's war, whether it's famine as it does in Revelation, but that's coming first. That's presented first, followed by the white horse. The white horses provide hope. The white horses provide salvation. The white horses reflect an end of whatever's happening as a result of the black horses.
You know, George, I like your thought. I'm not sure how much at this moment, I totally comprehend or even get, but we do know one thing. These are spirits of heaven, so these aren't evil spirits going out here.
Right.
They stand before the Lord. Okay, he's sending them out, but you could be right that he has sent the black ones out to not to bring evil, but because of evil, to deal with the evil. And as we see in Revelation, the white horse goes out first, which is interesting when it's dealing with the whole earth, because it's going out to conquer. But when Jesus comes, he comes on a white horse, and he definitely brings, well, it's a major war to begin with, but he ultimately brings peace and restoration. So when we see that here, we see that the black ones went, the white ones are following them. I don't know if they're working together or if the white one's doing something to clean up whatever the black horses were doing. But we see that as a result, kind of like when Jesus comes and sets up, it says, it gives my spirit rest. So that's God's spirit we're talking about there. His spirit has rest, and we'll definitely see that at the start of the millennial reign, you know, when Jesus comes back on the white horse and deals with it. It's easy to, yeah, I'm not saying anything about anybody's, from what I've been reading, a couple of the guys said this is one of the hardest chapters for them in the whole Bible. So this section of the Zechariah 6.
What pops into my head about the chariots is there's usually somebody of a higher station in the chariot compared to the footmen or the horsemen or whatever. And to throw just a little more muddle into it, the very end here, my spirit, there's a footnote on my stuff that takes us to Ecclesiastes 10:4. And it says, which I have no idea, if the spirit of the ruler rises against you, do not leave your post. For conciliation pacifies great offenses, which I don't know how they tied that into this, but it definitely throws in more of a, like the upper echelons, the government, or the not man government, but like the higher order of the spirits and angels and stuff like that are doing stuff, are trying to figure things out, or make war, or make peace, or
Yeah.
that just popped into my head. I have nothing to back that up with.
No, I understand. So let's see, what do we get out of it for sure? Okay, we got chariots coming between these bronze mountains, and bronze represents judgment. We're not told exactly what the two mountains are, where they are, if they're just real mountains that exist in reality, but in the vision they look like bronze. But we do have the fact that there's judgment coming, and we see what the chariots, the color of the horses pulling the chariots. And it's interesting that the chariots are called the four spirits of heaven. So angels, I think we probably would be correct in that. At least they're heavenly beings. These chariots represent, and they're start out, three of them in specific directions. Got two going north, one going south, and the fourth one, the red one's not mentioned going anywhere at the beginning, but then it says the strong steeds went out. So, and they were eager to go do what God is calling them to do, and they walked to and fro throughout the earth. Excuse me. And he's capitalized. So the Lord has said, go walk to and fro throughout the earth. And they do that. They go throughout the earth. And whatever else they were doing in all the earth, whatever they did in the north country, that would seems to have been the maybe the main focus, because what they did in the north country gives rest to God's spirit. In other words, he is now content with whatever he sent these spirits to do. I think I can see that pretty clearly in here, understanding all the nuances in there. Mm-hmm. Not so much, but I think we see that God judges righteously. God uses angels in his judgment. We see that here. We see that in Revelation also. We saw he used angels back in Zechariah 1 to observe what's going on the earth, and he uses the angels in his judgments on the earth. That's what I see for sure. You guys see anything for sure?
I see the page.
I see the page. So we look at this sometimes, especially with prophecies. What can I get out of it today? And for me, the main thing I get out of today is, like I say, God is in charge of the judgments of the earth. He's in charge of setting up. We don't see this so much here, but when we tie it in with many other scriptures, God sets up nations. He tears down nations. He defines their boundaries. And there's other scriptures I don't have the reference to today that show us that he brings about kings. He sets them up. He takes them down, depending on how they are acting and reacting and what they're doing. So if you guys remember, was it not Malachi, one of those guys, the prophets, when the Lord was talking to him, and the Lord said, you won't even believe it if I tell you, but I'm going to tell you anyway, that Babylon is going to come, and bring judgment to Judah. And the prophet was like, wow, yeah, I find that amazing because Babylon is a lot worse than we are. But yet you're going to use them to judge us. Well, Babylon wasn't called to be God's chosen people. He did choose them to punish Judah. But as we saw in Zechariah 1, Babylon and the other countries that were around them, because even the neighboring countries joined in, he says, I was a little angry and they helped. In other words, he was angry with Judah and Israel, and these countries went way beyond what God had asked them to do. And the Old Testament prophets make that clear that God was not happy with the way they really, really mistreated the Jewish people, the Hebrew people. So then God used Babylon to punish Assyria. Then he uses Babylon to punish other nations, and including Judah. And then he uses the Medes and the Persians to punish Babylon. So makes me wonder sometimes to think about it. And we don't have it recorded how much God was using the nations during our world wars to be doing judgment. I don't know. Were they wars of judgment? That I don't know either, but God does bring judgment. He will bring a final judgment one of these days. So, and I think I even kind of see that in here, especially when I look at the the four horsemen in the apocalypse in Revelation. So, shall we move on?
Well, I have a simple view of it all.
All right.
God has the perfect plan, and I understand very little of it.
I think that's
okay. That's an honest take. And I think sometimes at best we get glimpses of it.
Mm-hmm.
God's plan, and he reveals it. I think some things become more clear as time goes on, because I look back at some of the really, really old commentators that we have some records of that made commentaries on some of these passages. I'd see that today. I wonder, would those commentaries still be the same? Because some of them, when they were writing their commentaries, they saw Israel as totally just never happening again. They're gone, they're dispersed, never to come back together. So they had spiritualized all the things about Israel and turned it into things for the church. And that still lingers today in a lot of Christianity. But there's become more and more clarity over the last 100 years among the Christians and among the church, about the fact that God is not done with Israel. But that has kind of taken an awakening period. So maybe things will become more clear to us. And I don't know I think I've suggested before, I don't know if you guys have ever looked at it. I can send you a link to it, but David Guzik, Barb and I have watched it, I think 3 times. I think it's a 12-part series about God's plan for the ages. It's several messages where he starts out from actually pre-Genesis and goes clear up to past the millennial reign, laying out all through the scripture about God's plan. It's very, very educational. So maybe I'll send that link out. And
it'd be nice
a chance to look
at
it. So
thank you.
Cool.
Yeah, talks about all
one other thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, one other thing, like at the beginning of 6, the mountains that popped into my head. There was in the first part of the Old Testament, probably. Well, anyway, the 2 mountains, one of curses and one of blessings.
Mm-hmm.
So judgments aren't always bad judgments, like judgments against or judgments for evil. Sometimes a judgment is a good thing, right? So the mountain of the blessings, would that be judgment for good? Or am I off base?
But yeah, it depends on what we mean by judgment, I guess, because sometimes we think of judgment as like condemnation or punishment, but God judges the whole earth. He judges what's good, he judges what's bad, and he often rewards accordingly, right?
Right, exactly.
If you're doing well, there's judgment, there's rewards tied to that. if you're not doing well, there could be, because we find out in the Hebrews in particular, for us as believers, God is, in a sense, judging each one of us, even though we're not looking at the final judgment for heaven or hell.
Right, right.
But whether he needs to discipline us or not. But it says that he loves us more than the earthly fathers do, and our earthly fathers discipline us for our own good.
Yeah.
Most of the time. Sometimes they're wrong. But anyway, he's never wrong in his. And it says if God is never disciplining you, you might wonder about, really, are you his child? So in that sense, the judgment come about to bring about good. And even with Judah, when God brought the judgment on them, he wanted to bring good out of it in the long run. He wanted to turn them back to him.
Sure.
So even in Revelation, we'll see several times in there where these great judgments are falling upon the earth. But God's desire is that people will turn to him even when they see that. They'll recognize that this is, this is the hand of God doing here. We need to repent. And the
one true God.
Yeah. So even then, he's hoping people will turn back to him, will turn to him. I don't know if back is the right word, because some people will never turn to him to start with. So
you're kind of saying that it's a judgment for correction.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. The final judgment, the lake of fire, is not for correction. It's too late to be corrected. Yeah.
Yes.
That's an eternal punishment there. So, and it should be, the earthly father, and I won't say I always got this right. And maybe you guys, the dads, did it all right, but I got my doubts that when we did any kind of correction or discipline, I think our goals were, whether we did them right or not, was to bring about correction, to help our kids grow up to be really good adults, so to speak. I think we meant them for good, whether what we did turned out to work that way or not. The good thing is that God's judgments and his, I guess you'd call it discipline, is always, especially for us, is to bring us back in line with his will. So he means it for good. Wow. I'm not even sure we'll get to, I don't know whether to start this next part or not, because I don't think we'll get to finish it. So see the time, we got 9 minutes. Well, we'll stay here for a minute.
Okay.
We may have to do chapter 6, part B next week.
6 continued. I've got a quick question. As far as the we're still in the Old Testament, but the beginning parts of the Old Testament, did Aaron, when he became high priest, him and the family, did he get a crown or just like a turban or something?
They had, it wasn't really a crown like a king would have, but there was like a band, if I remember right, that went on the turban. You may be asking that in reference to what was coming up next about the crowns, but the priests themselves did not really wear crowns. No, they wore turbans.
Okay.
So it's very fascinating when we get into the crown thing. Maybe I'll even make a note since you mentioned that.
Yeah.
So we could actually reference that next week and look at what the priest actually normally wore on his head.
Okay. So I know there was a separation, right, between kings and priests.
Yeah.
But it seems that the closer to Jesus we get, and even back when Abraham did his thing with chasing the other kings, Melchizedek came into the picture with being king and high priest. And I just wondered if there were any other priests throughout the Old Testament that wore a crown, or if it was just their garb, their appointed.
It's possible that some other nations would have a king priest or priest king. I won't say that,
Okay.
but I don't know about what all the other nations did. But for Israel, that was a definite no-no. And we'll look
As
at
far as biblical,
example.
right? Okay.
We'll look at example next week too, where one of the kings actually tried to go do a priestly role, and what happened to him? It did not go well.
Yeah. Samuel
So
wasn't very happy.
that was a separate thing. But yeah, and so it's interesting you brought about Melchizedek. So that might be a good one to get into a little bit next week too, because he was a king and he was a priest, and God was all for that. So it might be, it's part of the reason when we see the comparison of Melchizedek and Jesus in Hebrews.
Right.
So it says that he was a priest after the order of Melchizedek.
Well, Melchizedek, wasn't that a Christophany?
There's a lot of debate about that. It's like
That's the stuff that gets
maybe
way
or
over my
maybe
head.
not, because yeah, and there's reasons I kind of go maybe not, but I'm not convinced either way myself. Because I remember going through Hebrews, we had a lot of discussion on that when we went through Hebrews, and I think, like I say, I don't know if that camp's going to be ever settled on this side, whether it was or not. But I know in Hebrews it likens him, Jesus, as Melchizedek. The similarities are definitely pointed out there because Melchizedek has, it's like he had no mother, no father, no genealogy anyway recorded. So very possible that was Jesus then. Christophany. We do know that Hebrews,
One last question.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead and finish your thought.
No, I think I'm done because I've lost my track anyway. It's already gone for you.
Okay. Sorry about that. So I've heard teachings from Hebrews or from Jewish people, Messianic Jews, saying that Jeshua and Joshua are two different names. They don't mean the same thing or something like that. So sometimes we start saying Yoshua as in Jesus, but Jesus is actually Yeshua. Any input there?
Yeah, there's good input there. You know, in the anyway, Benton's English translation of the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Hebrew scriptures, and they're not exactly like ours, but when it talks about Joshua, the name is Jesus in the Septuagint. Okay. So whatever that word is, but if Jews are talking about it, if they're Jewish Christians, I'm not sure where they're coming from, but if they're Jews who want to deny Christ, I can understand where they're coming from already.
Sure. No, they're actually, this is a messianic, and I think it was a mirror, but I won't swear to that, saying that they're two different names, Jeshua and Joshua. And the Jeshua is Jesus. So I'm not sure. I just kind of was wondering if there was.
That'd be a good one to bring up and show you, because everything I've seen, and I've seen different places, that Joshua, Yeshua, and Jesus are the same name, just depending on what language it's coming from. Kind of like my name in Spanish is Ramon, Ramon instead of Raymond. So, yeah.
Yep.
I'm not sure what George is, but George is George. Jorge, that's right. Jorge in Spanish. Yeah.
Jorge with an accent over the
same guy. Yeah. Now, Jesus is a popular name in Mexico.
Jesus.
Jesus. Yeah.
I have a friend, Jesus. My friend that's paralyzed is named Jesus.
Yeah. So, yeah, but if somebody's coming from a non-believer point, they'll come up with some interesting things trying to get you to think differently.
Right.
But anywho, what are good questions. I like that question stuff. So makes us all think. So okay, I'm gonna stop the recording there.